Criminal Code of Cambodia, 2009, Criminal Responsibility. Title 2. Criminal Responsibility. Chapter 1. Perpetrator, Instigator and Accomplice. Article 25. Definition of perpetrator. Described as a perpetrator is a person who has committed the incriminated acts. Described also as a perpetrator is a person who has attempted to commit a felony or, in the cases provided for by law, a misdemeanour. Article 26. Definition of co-perpetrators. Described as co-perpetrators when several persons have agreed to commit an offence together directly. Described also as co-perpetrators when several persons have agreed to attempt to commit a felony or, in the cases provided for by law, a misdemeanour directly. Article 27. Definition of attempt. The attempt to commit a felony or, in the cases provided for by law, a misdemeanour is punishable when the following conditions are fulfilled. 1. The perpetrator has started the initial steps in the commission of the offence, which means that the perpetrator has carried out his/her intention directly to commit the offence. 2. The perpetrator has not stopped his/her act voluntarily, but it was disrupted or interrupted by the effect of the circumstances outside his/her will. Active preparation without own intention to commit an offence does not constitute the initial steps. The attempt in petty crime carries no punishment. Article 28. Definition of instigator. Described as an instigator is the person who 1. Encourages the commission of a felony or a misdemeanour by giving an instruction or order. 2. Instigates to commit a felony or a misdemeanour by means of a gift, a promise or a threat, incitement, lure or by abuse of his/her authority or his/her power. The instigator is punishable only if the felony or the misdemeanour is carried out or was attempted. The instigator of a felony or a misdemeanour receives the same punishments as the perpetrator. Article 29. Definition of an accomplice. Described as an accomplice is the person who intentionally facilitates the attempt or the realization of a felony or a misdemeanour by providing his/her help or assistance. The accomplice of a felony or a misdemeanour receives the same punishments as the perpetrator. Article 30. Definition of public officials, citizens entrusted with public mandate through elections. 1. Public officials mean a. Persons who work in legislative, executive or judicial institutions who are appointed by legal instruments either permanently or temporarily with or without remuneration regardless of their status or age. B. Other persons who work in public functions, including public agencies or public enterprises and other public institutions that are stated in the laws of the Kingdom of Cambodia. 2. Citizens who are entrusted with public mandate through elections, i.e. senators, members of National Assembly, commune/Sangkat councillors and citizens who are entrusted with public mandate through elections to perform other public functions. Chapter 2. Causes of criminal irresponsibility or lessening responsibility. Article 31. Cause of irresponsibility due to mental disorder. When a person commits an offence right at the time when he/she is suffered from mental disorder which suppresses his/her discernment, he/she is not criminally responsible. When a person commits an offence right at the time where he/she is suffered from mental disorder which reduces his/her discernment, he/she still remains criminally responsible. However, the court must take into account that circumstance when it determines the penalty. When a person commits an offence right at the time where he/she suffered from mental disorder due as a result of using alcohols, addicted drugs, or substances prohibited by laws, cannot be exempted from criminal responsibility. Article 32. Authorization by laws or authorities. A person who performed an act prescribed or authorized by the law, he/she does not commit an offence. A person who performed an act compelled by legitimate authority, he/she does not commit an offence, except for the fact that this act is obviously illegal. However, the perpetrator The instigator or the accomplice of genocide, of a crime against humanity or war crime, cannot be exempted from his/her criminal responsibility even with reasons as mentioned below. 1. He/she has performed an act prescribed, authorized or prohibited by the law and force. 2. He/she has so acted under the order of the legitimate authority. Article 33. Legitimate defense. A person who committed an offense under a legitimate defense is not criminally responsible. Legitimate defense must fulfill the following conditions. 1. The offense is justified by the necessity to engage in defense against an unjustified aggression. 2. The offense and the aggression must happen at the same time. 3. There is no disproportion between the means of defense used and the severity of the aggression. Article 34. Presumption of legitimate defense. The legitimate defense is presumed in the following cases. 1. The offense is committed in order to repulse from a residing place and entering at night by means of breaking in and entering by violence or by trickery. 2. The offense is committed for self-defense against larcenies or of robberies carried out with violence. The presumption of legitimate defense is not absolute. This presumption may be waived by contrary evidence. Article 35. Virtue of necessity. A person who is in a virtue of necessity of committing an offense is not criminally responsible. The state of a virtue of necessity must fulfill the following conditions. 1. The offense is justified by the virtue of necessity for protection of oneself. To protect another person or to protect a property against real or impending danger. 2. There is proportion between the means of defense used and the severity of the danger. Article 36. Impact of force or constraint. A person who committed an offense under the impact of a force or of a constraint to which he/she cannot resist is not criminally responsible. The force or the constraint can only be the result of the event independent of human will. The force or constraint must be unforeseeable and inevitable. Article 37. Criminal irresponsibility. A person who is not criminally responsible is not subject to any punishment.